Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 390. We're doing our Week 8 NFL picks against the spread for this 2022 NFL season. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you, and how's your Week 7?
I'm doing pretty good. Week 7 was not good. That was probably our worst week of the season. We're gonna have down weeks every now and then. We had a couple down weeks before. Last week was just very frustrating, though. I felt like if anyone's familiar with the Fairly Odd Parents, there's an episode where Timmy's mom repeatedly touches plants and they all die, and then she keeps yelling, "Everything I touch dies." That was like me with every bet I made. I lost every single bet except for I think 2. I made like 7 or 8 bets. I only won 2 of them. So it was not a great week. Went 6-8 overall. Just had some misses in evaluation, had some bad luck, and just some teams didn't show up to perform. Like the Buccaneers, I have no idea how they did not show up to beat the Panthers, got crushed by them. Like if they hadn't showed up and lost and they just won and didn't cover, I wouldn't have been surprised. But the fact they got crushed, that was shocking to me. Just got to reevaluate a little bit of what we're doing, and hopefully we'll bounce back. I've got faith that we're still doing some of the right stuff.
Yeah, that Tampa Bay Carolina game was very frustrating. I got away from it at the end. I still bet like 2 units on it on Tampa, and I thought maybe backdoor cover would happen, but apparently not. Like Carolina's just dominated the Buccaneers, and it was right away. Mike Evans dropped that deep pass, and they just didn't really have a chance after that for some reason. They just couldn't score at all. I mean, Carolina is a good defense, but Carolina's offense performing well, I think, was the bigger surprise for me. That Detroit-Dallas game, that was our biggest bet of the week. That was so frustrating. Amon-Ra St. Brown gets ruled out for a concussion that he didn't even have in the first quarter. Jamal Williams fumbles at the 1-yard line, and yet the Lions are still down 4 with 3 minutes left at +7. I just thought they were going to cover the whole time. And at the end, Dallas gets two touchdowns at the end to cover the spread. That was very frustrating. Another big loss I had was Denver. The Broncos outgained the Jets by a wide margin. It just like every time they got to the 30, they couldn't score. And then that Breece Hall touchdown was the difference maker. Just very frustrating. But, I made some bad calls. Like you said, you made some bad calls. I made some bad calls. So we can, there's definitely room for improvement. But we've had some bad luck in the past few weeks too. So I'm not discouraged or anything. I think we can bounce back. There are some games I really like this week. So I'm excited to talk about them with you. Before we do, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, and visit the link in the description for the merch store. We were asked last week if we have any sweatshirts or hoodies. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing a Walter Football hoodie this time because it's freezing down here in my basement. But I have a new background. I have a table, so it's exciting times, and looking to turn things around. Also, we're sponsored by Stochastic. You can find the link to that in the description of this video. They're the best number 1 DFS site out there. If you play on DraftKings or FanDuel, definitely sign up to Stochastic and use promo code WalterFootball. That's one word, WalterFootball, for 25% off. They have the best projections and ownership projections as well. They have a boom bust tool, which is amazing. They have a lineup generator that you can use too. They have everything, and they have every sport too. So right now with basketball starting, I don't have time to do research on it because I'm working on football. And I use the rankings to play NBA DFS, and I cashed more often than not, just doing no research, just using the rankings. So they're a great site. We're going to be working together. So I'm excited about that. I've been using them for a while. So definitely check out stochastic.com. Or visit the link in the description and type in Walter Football for 25% off. All right, so let's get to the games. The first one is, a couple weeks ago, we thought this would be an amazing game, maybe a Super Bowl preview. Probably not, but it had a chance. But now these teams are kind of struggling. We have the Ravens at the Buccaneers. This line open up, Ravens -1. It's up to -1.5. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I actually like the Buccaneers here, weirdly enough. I know people are going to be like, why would you bet them after they lost by 18 to the Panthers? But I think you kind of got to disregard that game a little bit. They just did not show up at all in any phase of the game there. They were so not focused. I think they'll be more focused because they've now lost back-to-back games against teams they were supposed to win. And now they're a home underdog against the Ravens. And I get why they're they're not favored in this one, but I still don't think that's quite right because the Ravens have had their share of struggles this year. The Ravens have blown 3 double-digit leads. All of their losses, they've had a double-digit lead in. Actually, it's been very frustrating to watch. They're a very hard team to bet because of that. And the other thing that you have to look at is like I was all over Lamar Jackson as a potential MVP candidate. First 3 weeks of the season, it looked like that was going to be possible. He played really well. The last 4 weeks, though, he has not looked good. The whole Ravens offense has been kind of off. They got Gus Edwards back last week, which helped them. But their pass catching weapons are just not healthy, and they don't have enough to withstand the absences of Rashad Bateman or Mark Andrews having a game where he's not fully healthy like we saw last week. He was dealing with a hip injury. Both of these guys might not be able to play this week. I know Bateman was listed as a non-participant today with a foot injury. That does not bode well for him playing on a short week, especially considering that he had missed several games before last week with that foot injury, and he was limited against the Browns. So if he doesn't play, I think they're going to have trouble moving the ball on this Buccaneers team. And Mark Andrews might not play either. So we don't know if he's going to be fully healthy, even if he does. So without those two guys, Lamar Jackson is really asked to shoulder the load. He just hasn't been able to do it. Ronnie Stanley's not fully healthy too at left tackle, and that just makes their blocking that much worse. So I just think that there's too many injuries on the Baltimore side of this for me to back them as a favorite. So I think we're getting a little bit of value here with the Buccaneers. It said I don't love it. I'm not going to bet heavily on this one. I'll probably put a unit down because it's Thursday night. But if this was a Sunday game, I'd probably be like, I don't really want to do anything with this unless I'm teasing Tampa Bay because this is a good teaser number here. But there's no real line value unless you think that the Buccaneers should be like a 3-point favorite in this one, which based on how they're playing on offense, I don't see it. But eventually, Tom Brady's going to get things straightened out. Maybe it'll be this week. Even if it's not, I think they keep it close against Baltimore and have a chance to win. So I'll take them as the underdog here, but I'm not looking to bet this one heavily.
It's funny that you mentioned Tampa Bay -3 because that's what the advanced line was. So this line is now plus 1.5. So it's a 4.5 point movement based on one game, which is kind of absurd. And we kind of speculated last week that Tampa might be looking ahead to Baltimore. I don't know where we came out on that eventually, but we thought it would be a possibility. I thought maybe we thought it was it's a divisional game. Maybe it was more important, but I think the Buccaneers are clearly looking ahead, even though they were coming off a loss that they had against the Steelers the prior week. So I don't really want to take that game into account at all. It didn't seem like they were focused at all. Mike Evans dropped that easy touchdown. Brady overthrew a couple passes to Evans. Evans was getting autographs from officials after the game. It just seemed like they just showed up and thought they would win. And, it didn't happen. I mean, Carolina played better than anyone expected. And I think that something everyone missed, including the people who made the lines, or I guess not because they kind of fooled the public, but the Panthers have a good defense and they limited the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers are frustrated the whole time and they just couldn't really do anything. Like I said, they thought they can show up and just win. And now they're home underdogs. I just think there's a lot of value with the Buccaneers. And everyone's betting the Ravens. All the comments, if you're watching this on YouTube, everyone's saying, bet the Ravens, can't bet the Buccaneers again. But the Ravens are struggling offensively too. I mean, they lost to the Giants. I think they scored 17 points against the Bengals. And the Bengals don't have a great defense. And last week, they were offensive pass interference away from losing to the Browns. So this team's not doing well. As you said, Rashad Bateman may not play. Mark Andrews is banged up. Even if he plays, he was doing nothing last week. He couldn't do anything. He drew a defensive holding penalty, but that's it. These guys are just not healthy, and now they're road favorites. It doesn't make sense to me. I think this is Tampa or nothing. It's going to take a lot of courage to bet Tampa. But I think I'm eventually going to talk myself into it. I have it for 0 units on the site, but I think I'm going to bet the Buccaneers for a couple units. And we had a question here that kind of goes along with this game from Matt. He says, what does it mean to be a square better? Is that a good or a bad better? It's usually bad. Square people are usually going to take the side that everyone else takes, and sometimes that pans out for sure. I mean, the public will win sometimes, but usually the square better is going to be fooled by stuff. And I think that's the case here. I think people betting Baltimore are the square betters here. Now, Baltimore can still cover for sure. Tampa could have another meltdown, but if you're betting Baltimore, you're getting absolutely no line value. And you're ignoring the fact that Tampa just mailed it in last week. I think the Buccaneers are going to have a better performance. So that is what a square better is.
Yeah, for sure. And you want to try to avoid being square. That's not to say that you have to never be square. Like you don't want to be I don't know what the would opposite be round, I guess. I don't know. No one uses that term, but you don't want to just like go against what everyone's doing. You got to put analysis in and say, hey, like I think that this is wrong. And I think in this circumstance where it's moved 4.5 points based off one loss where Tampa wasn't really paying attention to the Panthers. They didn't think the Panthers were going to be that good. They thought they could beat them in their sleep, basically. They traded their best player on offense. So I think Tampa Bay's defense was just like, oh, we got this. We can handle this. And they couldn't. They just didn't show up. So yeah, I think you're right. It's Tampa or nothing. There's just no value with Baltimore here. Maybe they cover, but they've just blown so many leads, and I feel like Tom Brady's eventually going to have one of his PO'd games. And I noticed one of our commenters, Samuel, said you could make an argument the Ravens could also look to Tampa Bay. Absolutely, that's definitely part of what happened. But I think Tampa Bay really got caught napping this time around. Like they just really thought they could beat the Panthers without trying. The Ravens knew they still had to try to beat the Browns, and they did, and they almost blew it, but they held on.
Yeah, I thought Baltimore might look past Cleveland as well. But, like I said, they lost to the Giants beforehand. They barely beat the Bengals before that as well. So it's not like they've been playing well before that one game. So I think you have to take that into account. Randy correcting me. He was Mike Evans is getting he was giving his phone number so he can get golf lessons. So still, like he's trying to call about golf lessons. Like I don't it doesn't seem like he's very focused.
Making those off-season plans, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of weird. And Deborah asking, where can I buy sweatshirts? So in the link in the description, you can just find the Walter. It'll be a T-shirt, but there will be options where you can choose hoodie or sweatshirt. So you can get anything in any color. It's pretty cool website. All right, let's move on to the Sunday games. And unfortunately, we have a London game at 9:30 in the morning. It's the last London game, although we have a Germany game in a few weeks after this. So Broncos versus the Jaguars. This line opened up Jaguars -4, I believe. And it's gone all the way down to 3. In fact, there's some 2.5s out there. So looks like a lot of sharp action coming in on Denver. Maybe they're speculating that Russell Wilson's going to play. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Broncos. I'm also of the mind that Russell Wilson's going to play. That has both positive and negative with it. Obviously, the positive is I think Russell Wilson is better than Brett Rippon, even though Wilson's having a down year. Rippon couldn't do much with the offense with Wilson out of the lineup against the Jets. So I think whoever plays quarterback is going to have to overcome really bad offensive coaching from Hackett and Uten, the offensive coordinator there. But I just think that as long as this line is at 3, the Broncos +3, I think it's a little bit too high. I know that the Jaguars have talent, and I know that they've come close to winning some of these games they've lost. But the fact of the matter is they're a young team playing a really good defense. And I just am not sure that Trevor Lawrence is going to have a lot of success against this defense. I know teams have scored on them. I know the Jets last week, they had that big Breece Hall run. So who's to say Travis Etienne can't do that? Who's to say Trevor Lawrence doesn't rip off some big pass play? Who's to say Damari Mathis doesn't have another bad game where he commits like 4 pass interference penalties like he did in that Monday night game because he's a rookie? I mean, there's ways that the Jaguars can win and cover here, but I don't know. I just look at this Broncos team, and they're not good, but they keep things close because of that defense. So where we're getting 3, I think I like them. If it drops to 2.5, I don't know if I'm going to like them as much unless Russell Wilson has a true clean bill of health. Either way, I don't think I'm going to bet this game unless we get really good news on Russell Wilson. Because, if it's like, oh, he's limited in practice this week, but he's going to play, then I'm going to be like, well, that might mean he's playing hurt through a hamstring injury and he can't move around. If that's the case, I might switch sides. But I don't think I'm going to bet much on this game either way. I don't see a huge advantage. I think the best unit in this game is the Denver defense. So I would side with them where they're getting the key number. But if this drops below 3, I don't see a lean on either side, really.
So I completely agree with everything you said, but there are two things going against Denver here that makes me want to back Jacksonville. The first is that this game's in London, and we've had a history, maybe not like a long history, but there's been enough of a sample size of coaches being on the hot seat and then flying to London and just like not coming back with the team. I think Nathaniel Hackett might be fired after this game if they lose. And like it's only 8 games, like, but still we saw Urban Meyer get fired last year. We've seen other coaches lose their jobs in the first year. And Hackett's been such a big disappointment that it could happen. Like if the Broncos get embarrassed in London, I think it might. And so I just feel like I would be worried about that. And plus Jacksonville has they have a lot of experience playing in London. They do it every year. And Hackett's never done it before. So it could be an issue. Like we saw with the Packers, Matt LaFleur traveled poorly. Like there's always that wild card that a coach is going to have issues traveling overseas. Like it could happen. We don't know. But given that Hackett's already on the hot seat, I would be concerned about that. The other concern I have with Denver is that Russell Wilson may not be 100% if he returns. Like you talked about his hamstring, like that's a soft tissue injury. Like what if it acts up when he tries to scramble in the beginning of the second quarter and then he either has to come out or he's hobbled and can't run around like he couldn't at the end of the Monday night game in overtime. That worries me as well. So, this line's dropping. If it falls below 3, it goes to 2.5. I think I would consider maybe even betting a small amount on Jacksonville at -3. There's not too much intrigue for me, because like I said, I completely agree with what you said. I think this line's too high. I made it Jacksonville -1.5, like just in a vacuum. But given all those concerns with Denver, I really worry about the Broncos here. And I know they have a great defense, but if they're worried about, or maybe not worried is the right word, but like if they're concerned or just kind of distracted with the possibility of their coach being fired, maybe they just don't really show up here and they just have a letdown and Jacksonville wins in a blowout. I could see that happening.
Yeah, you make a good point. That's why I don't really want to bet this game, because I think Denver's the right side at this line. But, it's kind of scary, the idea that they could just quit on Hackett. Like if they know, like there are reports out there that say like, oh, Hackett could be gone after this game. If they know that and they're like, we need a change, they're not going to show up and they could lose this game. It could be a blowout. But I don't want to back Jacksonville in case that's not right, because we're not getting line value. Now, if this goes down to like 2, maybe even 2.5, I would probably consider switching my side, but there's too many wild cards right now for me to say I would back Jacksonville. So I have a lean on Denver, but we'll see what happens this week. And if it's Brett Rippon starting, I have to reassess the whole thing. So, this is definitely one to watch, though.
Yeah, it's already 2.5 at the Westgate, so I imagine you might be able to find 2.5 somewhere online. Samuel's asking, how do you feel about Marlon Mack being added to the Broncos? Mack a couple of years ago, this would be nice, but he just hasn't been the same since his injury. So I don't really see this as being significant at all. Like I think this is just a reaction to Mike Boone getting hurt.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. Like I in my head, I'm like, is he better than Mike Boone? Is he worse than Mike Boone? It doesn't really matter because he's going to play the Mike Boone role, which, as we've seen, is the third string running back pretty much no matter what they have on the team. So I don't think he's much of a needle mover at this point. There's a reason he's bounced around so much since that injury.
Yeah, it's a shame that he hasn't played well since that. Anyway, let's go to the Sunday main slate. The first game, Bears at the Cowboys. This line opened up Cowboys -10.5. It's down to 9.5 based on what we saw Monday night with Chicago pulling a huge upset over the Patriots. Not only winning, but winning in a blowout, which is shocking. So who do you like in this game?
I was not happy watching that game, as you can imagine. Oh my goodness, I was especially mad because I was on Chicago last week, and then I changed my mind on Monday because I was like, I don't want to not back the Patriots. This is why you don't let fandom control your votes or your picks here, guys. You got to go with what seems right. I'm doing that here. I'm on the Bears for maybe a unit. I think this line's a little too high. I know it's moved off of what the advanced spread is, but my logic here is a few different things. Like, I know that the Bears were 9-point dogs on the road in New England. I don't think that game should matter because the Patriots just didn't show up. I don't know if they were looking ahead to the Jets or if they thought they were going to be able to beat the Bears, or Bill Belichick just struggles that badly against mobile quarterbacks. That was the one rule I really forgot when changing my pick. I was like, we had talked about that on Friday too, and I was like, nah, I gotta change my pick here. Shouldn't have done that. I'm kicking myself bad for that one. But I just look at this team, and I know the Cowboys have a really strong defense, and they're gonna be able to get some pressure on Justin Fields, maybe. But I think what I saw in the New England game is that they can run block really well, and Justin Fields is doing more rollouts in this offense. Like, Luke Getsy has finally been the one to realize, like, hey, Justin Fields is pretty good when you get him on the move. Maybe we should do that. Matt Nagy never did that. He did it like 15 times all of last year. And early in the season, Chicago was having Justin Fields sit in the pocket, and then he would scramble out and make plays outside of it. But now they're calling some design rollouts, which I like. So I think that what they're going to do is just kind of keep that defensive line for Dallas off balance. They're going to run a lot with Montgomery and Herbert, and then get Justin Fields on the outside so that, Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, one of them, if he's rolling one way, it's going to be a long way for the other one to come across. So you only have to deal with one, which is a bit less difficult. And then I don't know. I just look at this and I say this spread's too high for Dallas. Like, they haven't been overly impressive this year with Dak Prescott in the game. I know he's back. I know they won last week and they covered, but as you mentioned, that cover wasn't that impressive. Maybe he's going to get better the more time he's back from the injury, but I think this might be a situation where they kind of take Chicago. I don't know if they're going to take them lightly because of what they did to the Patriots, but I think that they're going to potentially be in a situation where they allow a backdoor cover or something like that if they jump out to a big lead. But Dallas has a bye week after this, so I think they might just be on kind of cruise control. We've seen this before. We saw the Chargers kind of do that as big favorites against Seattle last week and lost. Now, I think that spread was a little bit unwarranted, but I think that this spread's just a little too high too. So I think Chicago can cover this big number. They're going to have to avoid mistakes and turnovers, which is a risk, which is why I'm not betting more than a unit on this game. And I know that this is probably a little square because we're not getting good line value on Chicago, but I just don't think that Dallas is going to have a big enough performance to carry this type of line.
I think you could be right that Dallas could take the Bears lightly. The fact that the Bears won so convincingly on Monday night might alert them. I think if the Bears are coming off a blowout loss, I think they'd be more likely to just not show up. And the Chargers are kind of like a good blueprint for that. It looked like they were treating that game like a preseason game because they're like, oh, we're going to play Keenan Allen for only a half. It's like, okay, then why play him at all? I didn't understand that, especially with the bye coming up. Just keep resting him. I don't know what they're doing. I actually like Dallas here. Line value is a little bit. I mean, 10 is not a key number or major key number. It's like a minor key number. So that's like part of it. The other part is that I just don't have any faith that the Bears can pass block against the Cowboys. The Cowboys have, as we all know, they have a top 3 pass rush. Chicago has a bottom 5 offensive line for pass protection. So I just think that's such a big advantage for the Cowboys. I know that Justin Fields just ran over the Patriots, but like Bill Belichick has just a dubious track record against these scrambling quarterbacks. It's kind of like Nick Saban too. Like, Alabama's defense is always great unless they're playing scrambling quarterback. Like, it just seems like that's just the one flaw in these great defensive minded coaches schemes. They just struggle against the scrambling quarterbacks. And so I really don't want to take too much away from that Monday night game. Like, we've seen Justin Fields, maybe not this year, but like, remember that Steeler game on Monday night a year ago? Like, he had a great performance as well. And then we didn't really see that again. And it just feels like Fields has these great rushing performances on national TV, and then he doesn't do anything on Sunday afternoon for some reason. I don't know why. So I think there's going to be some regression from him. I think the Cowboys are going to be able to spy him and force him to throw. And if that happens, the pass rush is going to be all over him. I think it could be a disaster here. Like Dallas's defense could get 2 defensive touchdowns or something. And I think they might need at least one. Dak Prescott is not 100% healthy. I think he will be after the bye. But I still like Dallas here. I just think they have too much of an advantage with the pass rush.
Yeah, you might be right about that. I'm not like super strong on Chicago here. I'm just like, I'm not of the mind that I want to bet. This is where I'm at. The big spreads this year have been so hard for teams to cover. And I think that speaks to the fact that there are only a handful, like maybe a couple really, really, really good teams in the NFL. So I'm trying to avoid betting on large spreads if I have a reason not to. I think that I think your point about Justin Fields on offense is definitely something that could possibly happen. Like one of the things the Patriots didn't do was spy Justin Fields. I was yelling at the TV for them to spy him. I was like, why are they not spying him on 3rd and like 15? Like, that if he gets by you and it's man coverage, that you have to just have someone there, just play zone and then have someone there to follow him. The Cowboys can do that. They could maybe even do it with Micah Parsons if they wanted to. So maybe the play calling regresses. I'm really basing the improvement of Justin Fields off the fact that they had rollouts for him and that made him more comfortable. But who knows? Luke Getsy could come with an entirely different game plan to be worse. So I get your side of it. I'm scared of big spreads this week. And you're going to see that theme a lot in my picks, I think.
So I just looked that up while you were talking because I really didn't know. Teams favored by 7.5 or more this year are 5-11 against the spread. So you're right about that. However, teams favored by 10 or more are 4-4 against the spread. Now I know this is not 10, it's 9.5, but still it's pretty close. So it's kind of weird how the 7.5 to 9.5 range hasn't covered, but the huge favorites have covered. So I don't know. It's a small sample size, that could easily turn around. But you're right. I mean, there's a lot of parity in the NFL this year. So I definitely understand your trepidation with these large spreads for sure. Yeah. All right. Next game, rather. The Raiders at the Saints. This line opened Raiders -2. It's remained -2. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Both of these teams are pretty underrated right now. Like I think they're both 2-5, or the Raiders might be 2-4 or something like that. But they're both better than this. They both have played a lot of really close games. They've just come up short in key moments. Take the Saints, for example. Last week, Thursday Night Football, Andy Dalton threw 2 pick sixes in a span of like 100 seconds. So the Cardinals scored like somewhere between 17 and 24 points in like 2 minutes, and that changed the outlook of the game. But for most of that game, I thought that the Saints played better than the Cardinals, or they had a chance at least. Their offense was playing really well, and Dalton really cost them a lot of points. But we'll see what ends up happening there. But then the Raiders, they've lost their games by like combined 14 points this year. So I want to preface this by saying I don't have a strong lean on this game right now. What I have penciled in is the Saints for 0 units. The reason I have this is I think we're getting a little bit of value just because I think that the Saints could have had a chance to beat the Cardinals during that game. They were just so banged up. Like they were missing their top 2 cornerbacks. They were missing their starting left guard, which cost them on one of the pick sixes because Andy Dalton got hit from a sack against Calvin Throckmorton, who was filling in at left guard. And then, Michael Thomas wasn't in the game. So they were just down a lot of players, 2 of their top 3 receivers. I know Chris Olave played and that helped them, but they were still in it until the pick sixes. And I know a lot of people say, well, then you got to be afraid of that because no matter who plays, Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston is a threat to have some sort of defensive touchdown. But I don't know. I think that the Saints are a little undervalued here. I view this as close to a pick 'em. There should probably be a slight lean on the Raiders because I think they're the better and healthier team coming off the bye. And they had an easier game last week and they have a better running game. But I don't know. We're not getting great line value on the Saints here. So I could see the case for going for the Raiders where it's under 3. But I just have this feeling that the Saints are going to show up at home. This is like a do or die moment for them. But please tell me why I'm wrong here because I could go either way.
Well, I don't have a strong feel for this game either, and I do for like the next like 4 or 5 games after this one. So I'm excited to talk about those. But yeah, this is almost a coin flip game for me. But I think so. I think you're right about the Saints, where they're definitely better than their 2-5 record indicates. They've had a lot of bad luck. Like they should have beat the Panthers, like obviously, and then the Saints Cardinals game for Thursday night should have been a lot closer. However, I think the Raiders are underrated as well. So they're what 2-4 right now, or 2-5. And two and
Two
four.
and four, right?
Yeah, they're two
Yeah.
and four. Yeah, they had their bye. Um, but if you remember, like in weeks 2 and 3, they were down a lot of players, like including the starting center, their best linebacker. They had a lot of injuries then, and then they got everyone back in week 4 against Denver, and they had a nice win against the Broncos, and then they played very well against the Chiefs. They were up 17-0. They eventually lost by 1 point, but I think they were the better team for most of that game. And then last week they beat Houston a little bit closer than the score indicates, but they ended up winning by double digits. I think the Raiders are an underrated team right now. If you look at their EPA, their net EPA since week 4, when they got all their starters back, they're 7th in net EPA. So I think that people don't realize how good the Raiders are either. So it's kind of a shame that these two teams are playing each other this week. I would have liked to have bet both. But I will be on the Raiders because I think the most likely result of this game is the Raiders winning by 3, and we get that at -2. So it's pretty close though. Like if this were Raiders -3.5, I would definitely be on the Saints. At 3, it would be a true toss up for me. So I think it's pretty tight. I just I think when it comes down to it, I think that the Saints continue to make mistakes. It could definitely happen. If Winston comes back, maybe he's not healthy. Dalton, maybe he just throws another fluky pick 6 again. It just seems like the Saints are constantly self-destructing. Whereas the Raiders, their struggles earlier were because of injuries, and now they're healthy. So I'm more confident in the Raiders winning this game just because they're the better team. So I'm going to be on the Raiders -2, but like I said, I'm not really confident in this game.
You make a good case, especially since the Saints, I think, were like third highest turnover margin in the NFL. Like they turn the ball over constantly and never create turnovers, so that really, really hurts them. But yeah, I could see your case. I'm like so toss up on this one. I might have a different opinion by the end of the week, honestly. So we'll have to see what happens. Someone in the comments said it was Callaway's fault on both pick sixes. I think it was definitely his fault on the first one. He did not have a good game. He had a couple bad drops, and then the one in the back of the end zone I think was intended for him. Though that was more Andy Dalton's fault. But yeah, he had some trouble in that game, so can't say I was pleased to see that.
Yeah, Johnny asking, now Walter Football is partnered with the gambling houses too. Are you compromised? I'm not familiar about being partnered with gambling houses. I mean, it would be nice. I wish we were, but we're not. We're partnered with Stochastic, which is not a gambling house. They do DFS content, which is, like I said, it's pretty great. All right, so like I said, I like these next several games a lot. Maybe not in the next, maybe not after this one, but like 4 of the next 5. Including this, the Panthers at the Falcons. This line opened up Falcons -6.5. It's down to 4.5. Tons of sharp money coming in on Carolina. So who do you like here?
Yeah, so this is one where people are going to think like, oh, should we not read into the Panthers crushing the Buccaneers because the Buccaneers didn't show up? No, you can read into that a bit for the Panthers because that game speaks to one thing. They are playing motivated. They're not just quitting on the season. I was reading an Athletic article today where the Panthers, and Shaq Thompson was one of them, said that they want Steve Wilkes to be the full-time coach. So they're going to play really hard for him and just try to win him some games and give him a chance to, stake his claim to that job. So you're going to get high effort out of the Panthers. They may not have a ton of talent on offense, but as you mentioned earlier, their defense is better than people realize. It's solid. It's not like a top 10 unit or anything, but they have a good pass rush. They have some pretty talented guys at every level of defense. They have some good corners. So I think this game is going to be really difficult for the Falcons. So I'm on the Panthers here. The Falcons can't throw the ball very well. Marcus Mariota is leading this offense well because it's a ground dominant attack. And the Falcons are running the ball really, really well between the tackles with Marcus Mariota. Whoever they put at running back is doing well. Even Caleb Huntley's doing well. So I don't think that you can take away the fact that they're a pretty methodical offense and looking good from that perspective. But I don't think that they're going to win a lot of games by a lot of points because they are not a big play team. Like Demir Bird had an 80-yard touchdown last week. That was the first explosive play I remember from the Falcons that was not a run. They just don't pass enough. So if they get in a close game and it's late and you're talking about like, oh, they're going for a game-winning drive with like 6 minutes on the clock, I'm not convinced they get in the end zone if they have the ball. Like they might have to settle for a field goal because of how their offense operates. So where we're getting both sides of the field goal here, I think Carolina is the right side. Like, I don't know. I'm just looking at this whole situation with the Panthers, and where they have a good defense, they could slow down the Falcons. They have DJ Moore that can move the ball on offense. And their backup running backs, Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, looked pretty good against the Buccaneers. Now, the Falcons are good against the run, so we'll have to see if they can repeat that success. But the Falcons just don't get pressure against the pass. So PJ Walker is going to have time in the pocket, and he was good with time last week. So if he can do that again, then I think Carolina has a chance to win this game. Either way, we're getting both sides of a field goal. So I like the Panthers here. I think people are going to be on the Falcons because they're 6-1 against the spread, but they're a bit of a mirage right now.
Yeah, you said it at the end. That's the key here. So when this line opened up at 6.5, I remember like on Sunday night, I do my own lines, and then I looked at the spread, and like I just like paused and like, wait, is that right? And then I looked again, and I'm like, I said out loud to myself, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like the Falcons favored by 6.5. Like why? Like team is not any good. And then I remembered that they are 6-1 against the spread. Like going into last week, they were undefeated against the spread, the last team to be so. And we both know that was a bunch of BS. Like they had there's no reason they should have been undefeated against the spread, because like we discussed before, week 2 against the Rams, they were down 28-3. The Rams completely fell asleep, and the Falcons even needed a block punt return for a touchdown to cover that spread. And then in week 5 against Tampa, the Falcons were down 21-0, and Devin White even said they took their foot off the gas. So like what I'm getting at it here is like if the Falcons didn't have that like prestige of being undefeated against the spread recently, this spread would not be nearly as high as it is. Like like I said before, I make my own lines, and I made this line Falcons -2.5. Because you don't give 3 points for home teams anymore. The sportsbooks don't do that. It's like 1 or 1.5. And like I would rate like Atlanta like 1 point better than the Panthers, and I don't even know if that's correct, because the best unit in this game is Carolina's defense. Carolina's defense is really good. They get after the quarterback, they stop the run very well, and so that I think that plays well into this game, because like you said, Atlanta just runs the ball more than they should. Like even in a huge blowout last week, I think Mariota threw like 13 times. Like it just feels like they're not even trying to score. It almost seems like Atlanta's like trying not to get embarrassed by Marcus Mariota's throwing, and he's going to need to throw with Carolina shutting down the run, and it's not going to happen. And then on the other side of the ball, the Panthers' offensive line has been a disaster for the most part, and like against great pass rushes this year, they've been blown out, like against the 49ers. But like you said, Atlanta doesn't get after the quarterback at all. They have the worst pressure rate in the NFL. So Walker's going to have a lot of time. DJ Moore, I think, is going to have a big game. I see the Panthers winning outright. And, at +4.5, we get both threes. We get 4 out of the 6 main key numbers. So, yeah, I mean, sign me up for Carolina. I'm going to be betting the money line and the +4.5.
Yeah, I might join you on the money line. I think this is a game that Carolina can win. The Falcons just haven't impressed me. I think they're going to eventually have to make the move to Desmond Ridder just to see what they have with him. Like, again, Mariota is doing what is being asked of him, but I don't think that he has the passing ability needed to be a starting quarterback in this league. Like, obviously, you can get by with him as a backup if you have a run-heavy offense, because he adds another element there. Or if you use him as a backup and bring him in certain packages like the Raiders did when Derek Carr was, the starter and he was the backup. But yeah, they just don't have the passing game right now, despite having the pass weapons, as Randy just pointed out.
Yeah, I think they had to move to Ridder. I don't know when their bye is, but maybe they'll make the switch then. I just think that like if you're not going to throw the ball with Mariota, what's the point in starting him? I just don't get it. I suppose they have a chance to win the division. I mean, they're tied for first place. But if you think about it, if Carolina wins this game, which is definitely possible, and Baltimore beats Tampa, and the Saints lose to the Raiders, the Panthers are going to be tied for first in the division, which is insane. So anyway, let's move on to the Keystone battle here. The Steelers at the Eagles. This line open up Eagles minus 10.5, and it's remained 10.5. I actually popped up to 11, and it's back down to 10.5. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I said I hate big spreads this week, except for elite teams. I'm very torn on this one, but I'm going against the elite team here. So you might have to convince me on this one of switching my pick. So I have the Steelers penciled in right now. One of the big reasons is Mike Tomlin is a big underdog right here, and he tends to do well as a big underdog. I've missed on that the last 2 weeks. Steelers Dolphins was another game that I was like, I'm going to take the Steelers. And then last minute it was like, no, I'm going to take the Dolphins. And then I immediately regretted it because Mike McDaniel was coaching poorly in the red zone, 4th and 2 carry to Chase Edmonds. That was horrendous. Yeah. Anyway, but so I want to preface this by saying I really like this Eagles team. I think they have one of the most complete rosters in the NFL. I think they could easily blow out Pittsburgh. What concerns me, though, is the Eagles are playing on Thursday Night Football. That was really the tiebreaker here for me. I know that it's just a game against Houston, so they might not need to care about it. But what I'm leaning towards in this game happening is a potential backdoor cover because we've seen Philadelphia get up to these big leads this season. But then what they do in the second half is they just try to kind of run the clock out when they're up big. They have a great running game, so Nick Sirianni's able to do that a lot. But it's weird. They're averaging, despite being one of the better offenses in the NFL or one of the more complete and more consistent ones, they're averaging just 5.8 points per game in the second half. That's the third worst in the NFL, behind Denver and Tennessee. So those are not teams that you want to keep company with in terms of their offense. So what I'm worried about is if they get up, say 24-0 in the first half, if they just take their foot off the gas and Kenny Pickett just has a couple of late touchdown drives, you can cover the 10-point spread pretty easily. And I've liked what I've seen out of Pickett. I know he's thrown a lot of picks, but it's because he throws such a catchable ball. Pretty much everything he's thrown to his receivers, they have a chance to get the ball. Just sometimes the defensive backs get there first. So he's got to work a little bit on making it somewhat less catchable for the defense. But I don't know. I feel like he might be able to move the ball on the defense if Philly takes their foot off the gas. That said, I know that's not a great thing to bet on because Philly could score 35 points and then maybe take their foot off the gas. Then what is Kenny Pickett and the Steelers offense going to do? But I don't know, just the second half struggles for the Eagles on offense or second half unwillingness to score scares me enough that I have Pittsburgh penciled in. It's a 0-unit bet, though. So if you really like the Eagles, you might be able to convince me to switch sides.
I mean, I don't really like the Eagles. I am on them, though. Your concerns are why I'm not going to bet them. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a chance that if they go up big, like 21-0 or 24-3, that they could just take their foot off the gas and the Steelers get in there at the end. Like that could definitely happen. I think they're going to be more focused for this game than Houston, though. I mean, this is a non-conference game, but it is a in-state rivalry. I know they play each other only like once every 4 years, but like people make a big deal out of it here. And you know, this used to be one team and during World War II it used to be the Steagles. So they always bring that up. So, you know, the Eagles always want to beat the Steelers and vice versa. So I think that the Eagles are more likely to be more focused on this game. But like I said, if they go up pretty big, like I think they're more likely to pull their starters early. So I think you're right about that. But you know, I think that the Steelers are pretty outmatched here. So what you said about Tomlin being great as an underdog is correct. He's 48-27 against the spread as an underdog. And yeah, we both missed that last week. Like well, maybe you not at the beginning, but you know, I feel like I should have at least I should have been on the Steelers as well. That was just a big mistake on my part. But against elite teams, like Tomlin has not done well. Like think about last year, the Steelers played the Chiefs twice. They're big underdogs in both those games, and they got blown out in both games. Earlier in this year, a few weeks ago, they played at Buffalo. They were what, like 16-point dogs or something like that, and they just got destroyed. I think this is going to be pretty similar. I think the Eagles are one of the three best teams in the NFL, Bills, Chiefs being the other two. And so I think the Eagles should be able to take care of business, especially against this pass defense. Kind of saw like the Dolphins take advantage of it in the first quarter and just stop. But I think the Eagles just have such a big advantage. I think they're gonna just throw all over the Steelers, at least in the first half. So if you like this game, I would bet the first half. I think it's probably like -6. I haven't looked. So I definitely like that more than the -10, or -10.5 now. But yeah, otherwise I would just lay off this game.
Yeah, I think I'll stick with the Steelers as my penciled in pick just in case that backdoor cover thing happens or we get to the fourth quarter. Sirianni's like, hey, we got a 20-point lead. Like, I'm not risking the health of Jalen Hurts when he has to play in a couple days. And they have Gardner Minshew as a backup. So, yeah, this game, it's the least appealing of the, well, maybe not the least appealing of the big spreads, but the least appealing to take the favorite with the big. No, that's a lie. That never mind. I was going to make a point that I don't believe in. So let's just move away from that.
Okay. All right. We got a question here from Samuel. What are the prop odds for Carolina to win the division? Now you have me intrigued. I looked at Bookmaker. It is the Panthers to win the NFC South is plus 1867. So about 18.5 to 1 to win. That seems pretty good to me. I would still at even odds everywhere. I would obviously go with the Buccaneers because they're the best team. But, Tampa could continue its tailspin. And if so, the Panthers could get there. So I think those are good odds.
You could also like hedge your own bet. Like, I don't know what the odds are on Tampa, but you could bet Tampa for a little and then just put the same amount on Carolina and hope like, well, I hope Carolina does it. But if not, at least I get some of my money back.
It's a good. I like that. Tampa right now is -234 to win the South.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I like that, actually. I like that strategy. I think I might do that, actually.
Yeah. You could bet like a unit on Tampa Bay and then half a unit on the Panthers. If the Panthers win, you win big money. If the Buccaneers win, then you make some of your money back.
Good idea. I like it. I'm going to do it. All right. Next game, Dolphins at the Lions. So this has been ping-ponging between 3.5. It opened Dolphins -3.5. It went down to 3, and now it's up to 3.5 again. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Lions here. We were told to stop betting the awful Lions in one of the comments. They have been snake bitten by bad luck in terms of injuries. We talked about the Amon-Ra St. Brown thing earlier in the show. He was ruled out for the game because of the new concussion protocol, but he didn't actually end up having a concussion. That really hurt the Lions offense. They are so much worse without St. Brown and Swift in. You need one of them in to have success, I feel like. Jamal Williams is a fine backup, so you can get by with him in and with St. Brown. But if it's just Jamal Williams and no GJ Chark and the rest of their receivers have to play, Jared Goff has struggled. So I think that's what you're looking at here. But if you look at the Dolphins as a team, I've just been thoroughly unimpressed with them for the most part. Like, I get that they've had some quarterback issues, like just cycling through guys that have been getting hurt. So that's led to some of their poor results recently. But I don't know. I was just really discouraged by their performance against the Steelers. Mike McDaniel, he's a great offensive scheme guy, but his in-game feel isn't the best. I brought this up, but he had a chance to kick a field goal to go up 9 points on the Steelers. That would be a 2-possession game in the second half, and then you'd be talking about, hey, like if they get another touchdown, we still have the lead without a doubt. And he decided to go for it on 4th and 2, which I think the math in this situation said it was relatively even. I think it slightly favored the field goal according to the NBC broadcast, but the play call was what I was just like, what are we doing here? It was a 4th and 2, and you run it up the middle with Chase Edmonds. I mean, Edmonds was terrible in that game, and Raheem Mostert was clearly the better back. So just some of McDaniel's decision makings are kind of scaring me off a bit of the Dolphins. I thought they were overrated anyway after their 3-0 start. And I think that kind of proved it and that they evened out. And then they got a win against the Steelers. It was closer than it should have been without a doubt. Like the Steelers had a chance to win that game if they don't turn the ball over so much. So, yeah, anyway, this boils down to me thinking that Miami is overrated. If Detroit can avoid turnovers, they're going to be good. And everyone likes to look at the final score of that game against the Cowboys, but Jamal Williams, if he doesn't fumble on the 1-inch yard line, which my boss, one of my coworkers who's a Lions fan, was like, welcome to being a Lions fan the minute that happened, because he knew I wanted the Lions to win that week. And he's like, it happens every time. You think they might win, then that happens. But that was really a one possession game. It was like 4 points late in the game, like you mentioned. So I think Detroit can keep this close with Miami. I think they'll have a chance to win this one outright if St. Brown plays and stays healthy. Hopefully, Swift will be back on the field. It's going to work out at some point for Detroit. If they can never get healthy, it's going to be really disappointing for us. But I'll be watching the injury report closely. But if St. Brown's back on the field, I like Detroit here a lot, especially if we're getting the 3.5.
Yeah, me too. I was discouraged when we saw this line drop to 3 because it opened 3.5, and I was like, "Oh man, we missed it." But then now it's 3.5 again, and not only 3.5, it's plus 3.5 minus 105, at least at one of the sports books. So Bet US right now. So yeah, I like the lines a lot as well. Just think about this for a second. Like if St. Brown didn't get hurt. And if Jamal Williams doesn't fumble at the 1 yard line, and not only that, like it looked like Brock Wright on the previous play scored. Like if the Lions challenged, I think they would have won the challenge. Like they go up 13-10 with about like 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and the Cowboys were doing nothing offensively except for like one drive. I think the Lions might pull that out, and if not, they maybe lose by 4. Like maybe it's a 17-13 game. And I think the spread would be lower. I think the spread would be 3 at the very most, and maybe 2.5. So I think we're getting good line value with the Lions. We're getting 4 of the 6 main key numbers, including both threes with the plus 3.5. And then the Dolphins, I agree. Like they're not very impressive. Like except for that first game against the Patriots, which that was even misleading because they had that was a weird interception on the first drive for Mac Jones. There was that fumble return for a touchdown, and then I think they caught Belichick off guard on was it like a 4th and 7 or 4th and 9? They went for it right before halftime and they scored a touchdown. Like it wasn't for those 3 plays. The Patriots either would have lost by a few points or they may have won. So I think the Dolphins are definitely misleading, and also like they beat the Bills when Buffalo was missing like half the roster. They beat the Ravens when the Ravens blew a huge lead. Like the Dolphins have done nothing really to really impress me. They should not be favored by more than 3 on the road. So yeah, we're gonna go with the Lions again. They're good at home. At least like they're good when they're in domes. If they have to go outside, it's a different story. But they should be able to play well, especially if Swift comes back and if St. Brown we know is going to be available. So yeah, the Lions look great to me.
Yeah, and I'm sticking on the Lions train until I have to get off. Like there is no point for me getting, like I don't know. I feel like I've ridden the train this long. If we can finally just get that 1 week where they're fully healthy, we'll be in good shape.
So like people are yelling at us to stop betting the Lions, but I want to go through this because I think this is kind of slander here. So week 1, we took the Lions and they covered, right? Week 2, I don't think we bet the Lions. We didn't fade them either. That was against Washington because the Lions are missing a lot of starters. In week 3, we both had big plays on the Lions against the Vikings and they covered. Week 4, the Lions were favored by 4 against Seattle, and we had Seattle. So we won there as well. Now week 5 against the Patriots, I kind of like when Swift or so when St. Brown was available, like I first was like not on the game, but when St. Brown came back and was available, I bet the Lions, but it turned out he was not 100%. So I think that really affected them. And then last week was the other game against Dallas, and I think we had the right side. So really, we've only lost twice with the Lions this year, and I didn't have a huge play on the Lions against New England. So it was really only one big loss with the Lions. So I don't know why we have to lay off the Lions. Like I think they're very underrated. They're not the worst team in the NFL, despite what the record says. So yeah, I'm not scared at all to bet them again.
Yeah, we've had a decent read on them. Like the one miss was the Patriots game, and I didn't end up betting that one because I don't. Yeah, Swift being out is hurting him. He's so dynamic when he's in. Like Jamal Williams is a fine backup, but he's just not the same player as Swift. Hopefully, Swift will be back this week, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I got an alert Friday, but that said Swift is probably gonna be out. And that's why I kind of said wait to take the Lions to +7. So if I hear anything, I'll kind of hint at it on the site. But I don't know. I feel like he should be back. I don't see why he's out for so long. I think he should be. I think there's a good chance he comes back this week, but we'll see.
Yeah, here's hoping.
Yeah. All right. Next game, another 3.5 line. Cardinals at the Vikings. This line opened up Vikings minus 4.5, I believe. It's now it's down to 3.5, but there's still a 4 available at Bovada. So you kind of have your choice there. Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I think we're both going to be on the same side here. I like the Cardinals a lot here. I think this number's just off. I think you can make a case for the Vikings being better than the Cardinals, but we're getting key number of 3, and I think this is a field goal type game. The Cardinals match up pretty well with the Vikings. I know we have some Vikings fans watching, so you're gonna hear some familiar stuff here. But there are a few things that make this a tough matchup for the Vikings. One is that Kirk Cousins is not good against the blitz, or he's much weaker against the blitz, and the Cardinals blitz more than maybe any other team in the NFL. So I think that this is going to be a tough matchup for him. This is Cousins' numbers against the blitz. He's completed. Well, this is wrong. I think it's 53.3% of his passes against the blitz. I wrote 3.3%. That can't possibly be right. So he's completed just over 50% of his passes against the blitz for only 4.5 yards per attempt. That is very bad. That means he's turning into like a true check down Charlie, where he just sees the blitz coming and is like, I got to just get this out to someone. And then defenses are swarming to tackle him. So, that's not ideal because the Cardinals blitz so frequently. And then the other thing is the Cardinals have a really good number 1 corner. Byron Murphy's been really good this year. And he's going to be able to take away Justin Jefferson a bit, or at least, slow him down or make it hard for Kirk Cousins to get him the ball when the blitz is there, because Murphy's going to stick with Jefferson in those early situations. So I think that's going to make it hard for them to move the ball, sort of like what happened against the Eagles. Not quite that bad, but I think it's going to be a little bit similar, where they're going to be getting a lot of pressure and Cousins is going to make some panic throws. And then Jefferson will be a little quieter than usual. And I know some people will say, well, the Vikings had extra time to prepare for this. The Cardinals also had a mini bye, so it's not like they're getting like a 4-day or a 7-day advantage. It's more like a 3 or 4-day advantage in terms of prep. And the Cardinals were also banged up on Thursday Night Football, so they're going to get healthier than they were against the Saints. And their offense looked great against the Saints because DeAndre Hopkins was back. And we all know the weakness of this Vikings team is their cornerbacks. So I think that the Cardinals are going to be able to cover this one here. I don't know if they'll win outright, but I do think that the Cardinals are the right side here.
I love Arizona this week as well. I agree with everything you said so far. So to add to what you said, I just, like, someone just asked, like, if I still have the Vikings on the overrated list, and like I don't see why I wouldn't. So week 1, which is generally like a week to throw away because weird things happen like this. The Bengals lost to the Steelers, like last year, the Steelers beat the Bills. Like, weird things happen week 1. But anyway, in week 1, the Vikings beat the Packers. It's probably their best win of the year. But the Packers are missing like half the roster in that game. Like even the spread switch, like the Packers are favored by kickoff, the Vikings were favored because the Packers had so many injuries. So like I tend to ignore that result. Yeah, they got blown out by the Eagles. We all know that. Week 3 against the Lions, they were down 10 in the fourth quarter, and then they came back because Swift and St. Brown both got hurt. They needed a missed field goal to beat the Saints, who are missing Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, and Jameis Winston. Against the Bears, they got out to a big lead, but the Bears came back, almost won. And then against the Dolphins in week 6, against the Dolphins team, we kind of just trashed. The Dolphins outgained the Vikings by 224 yards, legitimately. It was just the Dolphins self-destructing with penalties and drops. Otherwise, the Dolphins would have won that game with their third-string quarterback. This Viking team is not nearly as good. Even the metrics say that. In net EPA, the Vikings are 17th. They're an average team. I think they're really like a 3-3 team wearing a 5-1 Halloween costume right now. Like they should not be 5-1. They're just not that good. And the Cardinals net EPA since week 2, again ignoring week 1 because they had so many injuries, and plus week 1's weird. Since week 2, Arizona's net EPA is 8th. So Arizona is metric wise is the better team. Their defense has been a lot better than that Chiefs game. Than they were in the Chiefs game. And like you said, they got DeAndre Hopkins back, and Hopkins is huge for this matchup because Minnesota's secondary is pretty bad. Against teams with good receivers this year, they played 3 teams with good receivers. 1 was that blowout loss to the Eagles. 2 was that game against the Lions that they should have lost. If St. Brown doesn't get hurt, I think the Lions win that game. And then the other one was that Dolphins game where the Dolphins outgained them by 224 yards. So this line is, I think it's incorrect. I think Arizona, like metric wise, Arizona should be favored. But I made this line like Vikings -1.5. So this is on the wrong side of 3. We get 4 out of the 6 main key numbers with Arizona. We get both 3s. Arizona just looks great to me. I think Arizona and Carolina are my 2 favorite picks of the week.
Yeah, and there are people in the comments saying that the Cardinals struggled to put away Dalton and the Saints misfit receivers is what I'm seeing. I don't think that's necessarily what happened. They had some trouble against them in the first half, but then in the third quarter, they really shut them down until they had an 18-point lead. And then they kind of let the Saints alternate scores with them. That was kind of what happened. So I'm interested to see how this game pans out, but I don't know. I'm not convinced. And the Saints and those misfit receivers of sorts, also, that was the group that played against the Vikings and scored 25 points. So, I mean, it's not like that entire group is terrible. When you have Chris Olave, that's at least something.
Yeah, and we talked about how the Saints are better than people think as well. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't factor in garbage time. Like when you're up 18, you're just kind of like, all right, let's not allow any deep passes. Let's just let them get 10 yards at a time or 8 to 10 yards at a time. So I wouldn't factor that into my handicapping at all. Last of the early games, Patriots at the Jets. This line opened up. Patriots -2.5. It's down to 1.5. So actually, it opened up 1.5, went up to 2.5. Now it's down to 1.5 again. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, this is tough. I'm gonna need your opinion on this because I'm too close to the problem here. I have the Patriots penciled in. The issue is I have no idea what they're doing at quarterback. They were brutal on Monday night, and I know usually you have to be like, oh, they got killed on Monday night. Like they're not going to do well the next week because they don't have enough time to fix their problems. I don't know if their problems against the Bears are going to be as big as they were against the Jets because the Bears are built to run the ball and have a mobile quarterback that for some reason Belichick and company have never been able to scheme against, or at least in recent years. This is why the Bills keep beating them, except when there's 50 miles an hour of wind. So I think that the Jets are a better matchup here. I mean, the Jets just lost Breece Hall. That's a huge loss for them. I mean, he's been their best offensive player. He had the decisive score really against the Broncos on that massive run. It was the second fastest speed in the NFL so far this season on any ball carrier moment. The only one faster was Kenneth Walker's touchdown against the Chargers later that day. So, I mean, he's just an explosive playmaker who's gone, and he's going to be replaced by Michael Carter, who's okay, but he's averaging just 3.5 yards per carry, and the Patriots are going to be able to eliminate him more. And I think their pass rush is going to rattle Zach Wilson. They got after Justin Fields a lot. Matt Judon was great in that game. Fields was able to scramble out of sacks. That's one of his biggest strengths because he's such a fast quarterback. Zach Wilson can move, but he's not nearly as fast as Fields. And he kind of has that same thing where sometimes he gets in the pocket and he gets under pressure. And he just tries to run away and will just take the sack instead of throwing it away. So I think that the Patriots are going to be able to really slow down the Jets offense. They have 1 million tackles hurt. Elijah Vera Tucker is one of them now. He's out for the season. So Judon is going to be able to pick and choose his matchup a little bit unless they get someone back that I'm not aware of at this point. I think that the main thing that's going to happen, though, is Bill Belichick's going to try to force Wilson to look deep. He's not been good on deep passes this year. In fact, I think 60% of his attempts have come inside of 10 yards or behind the line of scrimmage. So that's not a good sign. He can make big plays, but I think he only has 3 completions of 20-plus yards in his game so far. He's going to have to do more in this game. The Patriots are going to bait him into doing that. So I like the Patriots here to win. The concern I have is if Belichick continues to kind of do this self-made quarterback conundrum where he doesn't say who's going to start and doesn't just come out and back one guy. You can't. He really mismanaged the quarterback situation last night in terms of I'm a Mac Jones guy, but you can't put him in the game and then have that short of a leash on him. You should just go with Bailey Zappi if you think that, hey, Zappi's playing better. If Mac Jones makes a mistake, I'm going to replace him. Just roll with Zappi until he proves you wrong. That's what they should have done. Zappi looked better than Jones last night. He looked more comfortable. He looked like, there was pressure getting to Jones too. I think he knew he had to prove himself fast and he just wasn't ready for it. So Belichick's got to just stick one guy and go with it. Don't go with this 2 quarterback nonsense, especially when the guys have very similar skill sets. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't know if was it one of the announcers of last night's game. I think maybe Aikman, but I'm not sure. They're like there is no quarterback controversy in New England, and then like Mac Jones is benched after the third drive. So it was very funny to hear that. And then Belichick said he was going to put Mac Jones in the second half, and then he never did. So I well maybe he like kind of learned from his mistake. Like I completely agree. Like they should have just went with Zappy, who's been better. Mac Jones has been turnover prone, and like he's not completely healthy. So like, why would you even play him? So I didn't understand that at all. But like, so you asked me to like kind of help you here with this pick. But I think you made some great arguments for the Patriots. Like I don't know why you don't like the Patriots. Like I think they're a great side this week. The one concern that I would normally have, and you mentioned this, it's like teams coming up blowout losses on Monday night tend to struggle the next week. So to give you a concrete number, it's 40 and 58 against the spread. Teams coming off losses of 17 or more playing 6 days later after Monday night. The issue though is, or not the issue, like the one thing that you should probably consider is like, well, two things. Like one, you're right. Like it's hard for teams to make adjustments following the blowout losses. But I feel like the Patriots don't need to make adjustments. I think that was just like a weird matchup against a mobile quarterback where the Patriots always struggle. And like it's not like they're playing another mobile quarterback this week. I mean, Zach Wilson can move around a little bit, but he's not anywhere close to Justin Fields or anyone like that. The second thing is like Belichick has done well off these blowout losses. Like it's a small sample size, but he's 3-2 against the spread after a Monday night blowout loss. So it's not like he's part of that 40 and 58 against the spread sort of deal. And I really like his matchup against this quarterback. It's going to be much different. Obviously, Zach Wilson can't scramble as much. And, you know, Belichick had his number last year in two matchups against the Jets. His team won by a combined score of 79-19. I feel like he should be able to really confuse Zach Wilson, force him into some turnovers. And Zach Wilson's not going to be able to rely on Breece Hall anymore. You know, they have James Robinson now. He's a good back, but he's not the sort of like game-breaking talent that Breece Hall is. Like the Jets haven't had anyone like that since Curtis Martin. Like Breece Hall was amazing, and they're really going to miss him. They're also going to miss Vera Tucker. Like he played three positions on the offensive line this year, and like remarkably not like those three positions like wasn't like neither of those three were his natural position. Like he was just playing both tackles and the other guard spot just because of injuries. And like they're really going to miss him because he was like the glue of that offensive line. So with those two key players down, I just feel like the Jets are definitely worse than the Patriots. And I think the most likely result of this game is the Patriots winning by 3, and we get that at -1.5. And I think we would have seen 3 if no one saw that Monday night loss to the Bears, because the advanced spread on this game was I believe it was or it was only -1, but like by Monday afternoon, it was 2.5, and it looked like it was going to trend to 3. But everyone saw the Patriots get blown out, and this line dropped to 1.5. And the fact that we're getting the 3s, I think, is a big deal. So yeah, I definitely like the Patriots.
Yeah, there's definitely line value. I just can't shake the feeling of the quarterback thing out of my head. Like he's done so much damage to Mac Jones by putting him in that game, and he's getting booed by the home crowd, and like just the amount that it's going to take for Jones to overcome that. And like he might not have been fully healthy. And like Jacoby Myers after the game even was like, you know, he didn't think that, or he thought it was ugly the way the situation unfolded with the coaches, the crowd, everyone. Like he said that about the whole thing. So I don't know. Like I get that you want to see what you have in both quarterbacks, but you just got to roll with one. And like Zappy had the hot hand, and like I say, this is a Mac Jones guy. You should have just rolled with Zappy if that was your plan to play them both. Like you can't. The NFL isn't college. You can't play a 2-quarterback system. The only time you can use 2 quarterbacks is if you have a starter who's immobile and a backup who's super mobile to run certain packages. But hopefully Belichick figured that out in that blowout loss and does not come into this one being like, we're going to play all our quarterbacks, including Jacoby Myers, who was a quarterback in college.
Who was I don't know who said this quote. I think it was John Madden. Maybe he said, "If you have 2 quarterbacks, then you have no quarterbacks." So I completely agree. I think you have to roll with one. I think Zappy would have been the right choice, as I said. William asking, how do you guys feel about a looming divorce impacting the Buccaneers this week? I mean, it's been impacting them maybe for a while now. It could be that. But like it doesn't explain like Mike Evans dropping that pass. Like I can see like Brady struggling because of this, but like everyone else is struggling too. I feel like after 2 losses in a row, Brady's going to get it together. I mean, we talked about this game already. You can rewind it. But yeah, I don't know if like obviously you like the Buccaneers as well. So you don't think it's going to be that impactful.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where maybe it was more impactful when the news first came out. I think we both thought it was going to like motivate him to play better, but it hasn't for 2 weeks. But I think that this is like a big spot for him. He loves being on national TV too, and I think he'll want to kind of silence that talk with a good game. But who knows? We'll see. But I like the Bucks here.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to the late games, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. And if you're into DFS, check out Stochastic. As I said, there's also a link in the description. All that would mean a lot to us if you want to help support the show. All right. So next game in the late afternoon slate, the Titans at the Texans. So this line opened up Titans -4, and then it plummeted all the way down to 1.5. Then it popped up a little bit back up to 2. So who do you like here?
Yeah, so I wrote this is the Go Girl game of the week. I don't have a lot of interest in backing either of these two sides. I do feel like we're getting some line value with the Titans, but I don't know if that's backed by the fact that Ryan Tannehill is injured. So like I have mostly a 0 unit count on the Titans right now because I look at it and I'm like, well, if Ryan Tannehill plays and is mostly healthy, I think they should beat the Texans because they have a good matchup on offense. Like Derrick Henry feasts against the Texans. This is insane because this dates back to like 2020 because he didn't play against the Texans, I think. I don't think he played against the Texans last year twice because of his injury. But in his last 3 games against the Texans, Derrick Henry has rushed for no fewer than 211 yards in any game. And he has 7 rushing touchdowns in those 3 games. Like, that's pretty crazy. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, the Texans are that bad against the run. And you'd think, like, oh, maybe they've fixed it by now. They haven't. They have the worst run defense in the NFL. They allow 164 rushing yards per game. So this is another spot in which Derrick Henry can just go wild. And I know his blocking's not as good as it once was. And Ben Jones is a little banged up. He played through it last game. There was a cool moment where Mike Vrabel gave him like a big hug after the game and was like, thanks for playing through whatever you played through type deal. It was cool to see. But I look at it and I said, Titans should control the clock. Even if Malik Willis had to start, like maybe you could run some read option and really confuse the Texans run defense. So I like it where we're getting the 3 here. I think the problem is that both these teams are overrated. Both have frequently been outgained by their opponents. And they're just, they have some holes. So I'm not going to bet on the Titans, but I have them tentatively set as the side I'm backing because of Derrick Henry.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I have to believe that this line movement is because of Tannehill. And if so, Malik Willis is going to start. And I usually like betting good teams with their backup quarterbacks, but I can't really say Tennessee's a good team. I know they're 4-2, but they've been outgained in every single game this year. They're 32nd in net yardage, which is so bizarre. They're 23rd in net EPA. This team is not a good team. And also, if Malik Willis starts, you have him going against Lovie Smith, who has a great track record against rookie quarterbacks. So all that is a worry for Tennessee. And if Tannehill plays, he may not be 100%. And if he does, I think this line goes up to 4. So you're either betting Willis at a near pick'em against a great defensive-minded coach, or you're betting Tannehill at a line above a field goal. So I guess it is like if you think Tannehill is going to start and be 100%, I think you should probably bet Tennessee right now. But we don't know if either is going to happen. So this is a tricky game for me. I think I'm on Houston, even despite like the scary stats that you read off about Derrick Henry. But I feel like Dameon Pierce should have a nice game as well. And if Malik Willis starts, like Houston can at least stack the box against Henry. Like there's like the numbers you read about Henry are definitely legit because Houston's terrible against the run. But they've had AJ Brown in the past. They had Julio Jones last year. Like they don't have those guys anymore. Like there's no one for the Texans to worry about. Like Robert Woods is running on one leg right now. Nick Westbrook, Akine is not a good player. Like he caught 2 passes in a great matchup last week. And like Austin Hooper I think was Tennessee's leading receiver last week. I think it's just a disaster there. So Houston can actually stack the box now, and they couldn't do that last week against the Raiders because of Devontae Adams and plus Derek Carr. So I think Houston might be able to limit Derrick Henry more like better than they have in the past. But still, like it's still scary. So like I'm kind of torn on this game right now. I think it was side of Houston for the reasons I said.
Yeah, I think this line went up to 4 and Tannehill was playing and he wasn't 100%. I'd probably be on Houston too. And you make a good case. Lovie Smith has been really, really good against rookie quarter. I mean, he dominated Trevor Lawrence last year as their defensive coordinator. And Malik Willis is nowhere near as polished a player as Trevor Lawrence. The one thing he does have is insane mobility. So, we could see there's a hypothetical scenario where if the Texans do stack the box, Malik Willis would run for 150 yards in addition to Derrick Henry. But I think that I think you're right. I think this is really close. It's a torn game. Like I have Tennessee penciled in now, but could be a million updates to their injury statuses, and I could want to come off this game. That's why this is a go girl game for me right now. I want nothing to do with it. Like this is giving me nothing. So I will wait and see if it gives me anything. But right now, leaning no bet.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm not betting this one either. I am betting this next one though. Giants at the Seahawks. This line up and up. Seahawks -3, and it's remain Seahawks -3. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so this is like scarily similar to last week's game with the Jaguars. So I'm terrified of this game. I have the Seahawks penciled in for 0 units, I think. Let me double check. Yeah, I got 0 units on this, so you might be able to convince me if you're on the Giants, but I don't know. I'm just looking at the Seahawks offense, and I feel like they can get the ball moving against the Giants a bit. DK Metcalf's injury is what worries me here. If Metcalf were healthy, I think I would say, yeah, I really like the Seahawks at -3, but he's not. So it's a little bit scarier here. And you know what? I'm talking myself into the Giants now. Like as this is happening, I think the Giants are the right side. So I'm not on the Seahawks anymore. I'm the Giants. This is how bad some of these games are this week for me. If Metcalf was healthy, I think I would like the Seahawks, but we don't know if he is. Barkley is going to be able to run on the Seahawks. Maybe Kenneth Walker will be able to run on the Giants too. But this strikes me as a close game. Like the only way I see this being like a big time blowout for the Seahawks is if like Geno Smith had a massive game. And I'm just not sure that's going to happen. And yeah, they have a suspect run defense, so Walker should have a good game. But at the same time, Saquon Barkley's going to as well. So I think this is going to be back and forth. It might end up being higher scoring than we've seen most Giants games be. So I think where we're getting the 3 with them, it's good. When I originally made my notes for this, Seattle was -2.5 where I was looking. So that is why I would have been on them. At 3, I like the Giants, though. So, yeah, I don't have a strong lean on this game, though. So where we're getting the 3, I'd rather take the side that I can get a push on a field goal loss.
Yeah, I like the Giants. We get both sides of 3 here. Like we get the push or the win with the +3. We get 4 out of the 6 key numbers with the +3. And I think the Giants are just a lot better coached than the Seahawks. I know like the Seahawks are definitely, playing above expectations this year, but it seems like Brian Daboll has done a great job with the Giants. And like, I think they're undefeated in second halves this year against the spread with the second half lines. And it just shows that that he's done such a good job of making adjustments. And someone said like Kenneth Walker has a great matchup, but so does Saquon Barkley. The Seahawks run defense is so bad. And Seattle's pass defense is terrible too. They don't get after the quarterback at all. And so like the one concern here with the Giants is that they're going to be down 2 offensive linemen, Evan Neal and Bretterson. But those are the 2 weakest of the offensive linemen, and they don't have to face a good pass rush this week. Daniel Jones has been amazing with no pressure. And it's like first time in his career he's not seeing any pressure, so like he's playing pretty well. Wande Robinson is developing into a reliable number 1 receiver, so like that concern that the Giants had where they didn't have any like downfield weapons, like now they do. And so like I just like the Giants here getting good line value. I made this line Seattle -1. So for the Seahawks to cover, they have to win by 4 or more, which like doesn't seem like that feasible. Like I know they've had some big offensive performances this year, but I think that this line is kind of impacted by what we saw against the Chargers. Like the Seahawks beat the Chargers pretty convincingly, but like we talked about how the Chargers treated that like a preseason game almost, because Keenan Allen played a half and like they just didn't really seem focused after that Monday night overtime win. The advanced spread on this game was Giants -1, and this line moved 4 points because of that. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. I like the line value we're getting with the Giants.
Yeah, that Chargers game. I think the Chargers are a little are not playing as well as they are. They're like really banged up right now. So they're kind of, I think people are overvaluing that a little bit for the Seahawks. And if you look at their wins this year, they beat the Cardinals by 10 and they just had that 14-point win over the Chargers. But their other 2 wins this year, they beat the Lions by only 3 points, and then they beat the Broncos by 1 point in that season opener. So, I mean, they've played in a lot of close games. Even their losses, they've only had 1 loss by less than a touchdown. So the Seahawks tend to play close games. I'm not sure that they're going to really pull away. And, you know, I've been wrong about the Giants most of the year. So maybe I'll be wrong here too. But I think this strikes me as too similar to the Jacksonville game. If it was -2.5, I'd probably be on the Seahawks just because I think getting 3 with them would be important. But since it's gone up to 3, since wherever I saw it at -2.5, I like the Giants.
Yeah. Yeah. Glad we're on the same page there. We have another NFC East team on the road, the Redskins at the Colts. This line opened up Colts -4, and then the announcement was made that Matt Ryan would be benched in favor of Sam Ellinger. This line dropped to 2.5, but then it popped up to 3. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, this one I had some trouble with too, but I'm on the Commanders at +3. It's kind of the same reason. It's kind of funny. This was supposed to be the Carson Wentz versus Matt Ryan game, and now it's Taylor Heineke versus Sam Ellinger. So that's less than ideal for these teams. But I don't really know what to make of this one because Ryan was really bad this year. He just had too many sacks and turnovers. I mean, he got no help from the offensive line and run game. Like Frank Reich even said as much in the announcement. He was basically like, yeah, we failed to deliver what we kind of promised we'd have for him. But I mean, like he just was making too many mistake-prone throws, getting strip sacked, like 24 sacks in however many games. Like it wasn't working out. So they're going to some guy, Ellinger, who has a little bit more mobility. So we'll see if Indianapolis's blocking improves. But no matter what, Ellinger is going to be able to move better behind this line. But I just keep looking at Washington. I look at Taylor Heineke, and I'm like, this team is probably just as good as the Colts right now. Like, I think the Colts have a little bit better personnel if they're all healthy. Washington doesn't have like great secondary play. That's their number one concern. But I don't know. I feel like Heineke's been getting the ball to Terry McLaurin more. And while I like Ellinger's upside, I just think Heineke and Washington are more proven in this spot. I could see a situation where Ellinger comes in, he completes like 22 of 25 passes for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he runs for some yards, and they can't stop him because they don't have tape on him. But I don't know, man. He could also throw 4 picks and get blown out. So if the Colts were underdogs here, if this line was like below +3, like significantly, like if it had moved to like Commanders +1, I might take the Colts. But at +3, I think the Commanders are the right side.
Yeah, me too. We get 4 of the 6 key numbers and a win and a push with the 3 point results. So that's intriguing as well. Ordinarily, like I said before with the Titans game, I like taking good teams playing their backup quarterbacks, but like the Colts are not a good team. I think they're 28th or 27th. They're 28th in net EPA. So they just underperformed a lot this year. And plus, this is not like an injured quarterback where like the rest of the team has to like rally the troops, and play above expectations. Like this is a benching. And so I think that's pretty different. So I would not factor that at all into this analysis. I just think that Washington is probably the better team. I mean, the Colts don't really do much well, like outside of like running the ball, and Washington's like pretty good against the run. The Colts don't pass protect well, and the Redskins have a good pass rush. The Colts don't get after the quarterback well, so Washington's offensive line won't be that much of a factor. And I think that, with Terry McLaurin going again with Taylor Heineke actually getting the ball to him, I don't know why Carson Wentz couldn't, but Heineke does. I think that gives Washington a good chance to win this game. I think it's gonna be close. I don't see Ellinger winning this game frequently by 4 or more points. So +3 looks good to me. When this line opened at 4, I was, even with Matt Ryan, I was like, okay, I'm going to take Washington to +4. Then it dropped to 2.5, and I was upset because we missed out on the 3, but now it's 3 again. So I'd like the Redskins as well.
Yeah, they just seem like the right side. It looks like Matthias in the comments is saying that Washington's going to be looking ahead at the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think that they care about Kirk Cousins coming back, because they've already faced Kirk Cousins, and a lot of the guys on the team were not on the team with Kirk Cousins at this point. It's been a while. In fact, I'm looking and I'm only really seeing Jonathan Allen and maybe Deron Payne as guys who are on that same roster, new coaching staff. So maybe, they've won 2 games, so maybe they'd be like, oh, the Colts are starting a backup running back or quarterback. But the situation here is that they're the underdogs here, so they know that they have to play a little bit harder. So I think that they know that they can't overlook the Colts here and look ahead to the Vikings. But under different circumstances, if Washington was favored here, I might agree with you.
Yeah, if they were big favorites for sure, but they're underdogs, so I wouldn't expect them to look ahead. And I think he was probably joking about that. You're right. Most of Washington's players are gone, so I don't think they really care about Cousins.
I assumed it was a joke. I wanted to make that clear, but I wanted to respond just in case.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, last of the late afternoon games, the 49ers at the Rams. This line opened up 49ers -2.5. It's gone down to 1.5. So who do you like here?
I'm surprised it's moved down. I like the 49ers here. I don't know. Like, Shanahan has just dominated Sean McVay. It's usually been a good bet to go with Shanahan against McVay. I think he's like 8-3 straight up and against the spread when facing McVay. And this spread is under 3. So I like the 49ers here. They're getting healthier. I know they're coming off of an emotional loss against the Chiefs. But I think they're going to be able to get back up for this game against the Rams, because they know if they lose, then they're going to be in, at best, 3rd place in that division going into their bye. And I know Sean McVay has the extra time because the Rams are coming off their bye, but the Rams offensive line is still banged up. I know they're getting some reinforcements in the secondary, like Troy Hill's coming back. Van Jefferson's finally coming back, so that might help their passing game a little bit. But this is a tough matchup for them. Like, Matthew Stafford's going to be under a lot of pressure. We've seen this year he doesn't deal well with pressure. He's thrown numerous pick sixes like he usually does. I think he's tied for the league lead in interceptions with the now benched Matt Ryan. So, we might see another interception. He threw a pick 6, I think, last time they played. I think Talanoa Hufanga did it because he's awesome, and that's what he does. But yeah, unless the 49ers have a lot of injuries in this one, I think they're going to be able to cover this pretty easily. As much as they probably wanted to beat the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs were just super motivated to win after losing to the Bills, I think. And when Patrick Mahomes and those dudes are playing well, it's really hard to stop that offense. The same can't be said of this Rams offense. We've seen them struggle a lot this year, and they're going to be breaking in a new left tackle too. Like, Joe Noteboom's out for the season. That's going to really hurt them, and he wasn't even playing that well. So unless they scoop someone off the street that's really, really good, I think that the 49ers should cover this. Maybe not with ease, but we're getting the field goal, and you got to love that in this circumstance.
Yeah, I wonder if this line's dropping because there might be some injuries we don't know about. That's the only thing I can think of. So once we see the injury report late in the week, it might make more sense. But otherwise, I completely agree with what you said. I like the Niners a lot, assuming there aren't any crazy injuries we don't know about yet. So if you think about like this matchup, and like the Niners have beaten the Rams 7 out of the last 8 times. So I would suspect that to continue. And they beat good Rams teams. It's not like the Rams have been bad, I would think it's going to be 8 out of 9 after this game. But like, think about that first matchup on Monday Night Football and how different these teams are. So like, first of all, like, okay, the Rams have Van Jefferson back for sure, but they're down their left tackle now. and that's against Nick Bosa. So that's going to be problematic. And then on the other side of the ball, the 49ers have Christian McCaffrey joining that roster, and they also have Trent Williams back. Trent Williams didn't play in that Monday night game, so George Kittle had to block a lot more. And now that Williams is back, Kittle is going to have some big games, which is why like he had a big game against Kansas City. So like the 49ers are better than they were when they beat the Rams. I think by was 17-point margin. It was like 24-9. So I think that I think that the 49ers are going to beat the Rams pretty convincingly here. Like the fact that we're getting the 3 with the 49ers winning, I think is a big deal because I think the 49ers winning by 3 is like the most likely result of this game. And like -1.5 seems like pretty great. I would have made this line like 49ers -3 or even -3.5. So I like that this line is low, but like I said, maybe there are some injuries we don't know about.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on it because the 49ers have been pretty banged up the last couple of weeks because Coach Paul said in the comments that the 49ers, well, he just said what I said. I'm just sort of repeating him, parroting him. But you got to remember, they weren't taking the Falcons seriously. That's why they lost 28-14. Like they were so hyper-focused on that game against the Chiefs. And then they got to play the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. So, some of that happens. And then, Jimmy Garoppolo had a rough day too. He had some turnovers. So I think that played a part in putting the defense in worse situations. So, yeah, I think this is a much better matchup for them, as you outlined. And this is their last game before the bye too, which usually if you're winning going into the last game against the bye, you cruise and you don't quite cover that spread. But when you're coming off of a loss and you're like, I got to stay in the division race, I feel like teams tend to play better in that scenario. So I think this is going to benefit the 49ers.
Yeah, I completely agree. We had a question here. How is McVay after the bye? He's 3-2 against the spread after the bye. Normally great coaches do well with extra time to prepare. But as we kind of learned this a few weeks ago, I think it was like week 2 we talked about it, where with coaches having extra time to prepare, it means less against great teams. And I think the 49ers are a great team. Like I would scrub that Falcons game from your memory if you're thinking about it. Like just like ignore that result. The 49ers are still one of the best teams in the NFL. So I don't think the extra time means as much. Whereas like if the Rams are playing, the Panthers, or which they did already, or the Falcons, and other bad teams in the NFC, I think that would be a big advantage for McVay, but I don't think it means as much.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. Sunday night game. This is the last of the huge spreads that you were alluding to earlier. The Packers at the Bills. This line is currently -11. It opened at -11, but it's gone between 10.5 and 11.5. So it's finally settled in at -11 again. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, this is reminiscent of the Eagles game line to me. Well, it's exactly the same, pretty much. It's gone between those two numbers, but I like the Bills here, actually. I think that the Bills are similar to the Eagles, that they have the, elite roster, lots of great depth. But I just look at this team and the matchups they have against the Packers. I mean, the Packers defense has played so poorly in recent weeks. Joe Barry's really not doing a great job, which, if you ask any Washington fan how Joe Barry would be coordinating a defense, they would probably say pretty poorly. But the Bills are they have great matchups here. Josh Allen's going to be able to throw all over this defense. They're going to be able to run on them with Allen and Singletary, both of them. I mean, they've had extra time to prepare for this. They're coming out of a bye. They're healthier than the Packers. And then on the other side of the ball, Aaron Rodgers just is going to be under constant heat. His offensive line is in shambles right now because David Bakhtiari can't get healthy enough to play. But they want to reshuffle their line because Elton Jenkins was struggling outside at tackle, or maybe they were struggling inside at guard, one of the two. But they moved him back to guard. They put Josh Diamond at right tackle. So John Runyon switched sides from left guard to right guard. Like they had wholesale changes on their line last week. And then they had in a rookie left tackle and Zach Tom. If you have that situation or a non-healthy David Bakhtiari at left tackle, against this Bills pass rush with Von Miller, they are going to exploit this and get a ton of pressure on Aaron Rodgers. I just think this is a horrible matchup for them. Rodgers just doesn't have the receivers needed to, the one, I wouldn't even call it a weakness, but the way you can attack this Bills defense is go after their cornerbacks. Like that's where they're least experienced and have the least talent while Tre'Davious White is out. And he might be back soon. So that will change the game there. But I mean, who's going to beat these defensive backs for the Bills? Is it going to be Romeo Doubs? He hasn't looked good lately. Alan Lazard's banged up. So unless they can figure out something with the running backs, I don't see the Packers being competitive in this one. I think they'll bounce back eventually with Rodgers, but this is just a terrible matchup. So I'm on the Bills.
It's kind of crazy that Rodgers is this much of an underdog. I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, even if it's late in the game, you would expect Rodgers to have maybe a backdoor cover. This line was the advanced spread was -8, Green Bay -8. It's up to 11, so we're getting good line value with the Packers. I would, I think the Packers are maybe taking Washington lightly last week, maybe not fully looking ahead to this game, but like, how do you not look ahead to playing Josh Allen? So, like, all that, with all that said, I'm on Buffalo. Like, Josh Allen, I mean, Aaron Rodgers was like holding his thumb. If you're watching this YouTube, like, he was going like this, like, for like half the game, or like whenever he was on the sideline. Man, whenever these quarterbacks have these hand injuries, you just don't want to go anywhere near it. Like, they can't throw as well, and like, I was so telling to me. So at the end of the Redskins game, like, the Packers hit a play to get to close to midfield. And I remember thinking, I'm like, oh man, if they only get to midfield or like around midfield, Rodgers can try one of his Hail Marys. And I was excited. Like, they got to, forget where they got to. It was like the 45 or something. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Hail Mary time. Maybe the Packers will win this game. And then they tried like one of those hook and ladder sort of deals. And then I'm like, wait, why are they doing this? I'm like, oh yeah, because Rodgers can't throw the ball because of his thumb injury. So, like, unless his like thumb magically heals this week and is 100% out of nowhere, I suspect the Bills would cover the spread. Now, like I said, like, if Rodgers' thumb is completely healthy all of a sudden, I would maybe consider the Packers, because I think they are the spread's a little out of control. Like, I think the spread factors in Rodgers' thumb. So I think there would be a chance for a backdoor cover. But given Rodgers' current condition with his thumb, I want no part of the Packers at all. So I'm on the Bills with you.
Yeah, quarterbacks with hand injuries are never a good thing to back. I mean, we saw it last week with the Cowboys-Lions game. The Cowboys only scored 10 points on what has been better than the numbers indicate, but still a really bad Lions scoring defense. They had 10 points in the fourth quarter at one point. Like, that just goes to show you that even coming back when your thumb's supposedly fully healthy, that's not easy. So I think as long as Rodgers has that thumb injury and is not able to rest it, it's going to be hard for them to cover spreads. Like, they might still win some games, but it's going to depend on their opponent. The thing that's really just too bad for the Packers is their bye's not till week 14. So if Rodgers' thumb gets to a point where they're like, we can't win games with him, they might just have to say, we're going to sit you out for a few weeks and let you get healthy. And that might tank their season, which would be too bad for them, because Rodgers only has a few seasons left, maybe, especially if that thumb doesn't heal up right. But if they were on bye the week after this one, it might have been a situation where they could say, all right, we're going to get you 2 full weeks of rest before this next game. But he's going to have to manage this the whole season. If he's shaking his hand on that sideline again, it's just not going to work out against this defense.
Yeah, those week 14 buys are brutal. It's kind of late in the season for a buy, in my opinion. And yeah, he really needs it to heal. And you're right, it's a good comparison with Dak Prescott. They had 10 points in the first 57 minutes of the game. So like, I feel like this might be a similar sort of deal. Like, this could be an ugly blowout. All right, Monday night game. And then after this, we're going to talk about our teaser and our survivor picks. So this is the Bengals at the Browns. This line open up Bengals -3. It's up to 3.5. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Bengals here. I think they match up pretty well with the Browns. The Browns are a little bit banged up on both sides of the ball. Wyatt Teller missed last week's game. That didn't impact Cleveland too much because Baltimore's offense couldn't do a lot because they were banged up. But it's not going to go as well against the Bengals because the Bengals, they don't have the greatest defense in the world, but they have enough that they can slow down opposing offenses. The bigger problem, though, is the injuries on Cleveland's defense. Like, Jadeveon Clowney and Denzel Ward have missed time. The best way to rattle the Bengals is get a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow without having to blitz. And that just hasn't worked with Clowney out of the lineup. It's been Myles Garrett and kind of no one else for the Browns team. They got some pressure on the Ravens last week, but a lot of that was Myles Garrett, and a lot of that was because Ronnie Stanley wasn't able to play at left tackle. So I don't think the same thing's going to happen against Cincinnati here. And the other thing is, if Denzel Ward is out, then Jamar Chase could have a huge game. Like, they're just getting him the ball so frequently. And they're just starting to really click Burrow and Chase. So I think that they can kind of pass on this Cleveland defense a lot. Cleveland's defense has had a lot of trouble. We saw them not be able to contain Bailey Zappi. They did well containing Lamar Jackson, but as mentioned, his weapons were all banged up. So I don't think that they're going to be able to contain the likes of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and then Tyler Boyd even. So this is just a really tough matchup for Cleveland. Jacoby Brissett may be able to move the ball a little bit on the Bengals defense. Maybe Nick Chubb can run well, especially if Wyatt Teller comes back. But I think that Cincinnati's probably likely to win this by a touchdown, if not more, with the way they're humming right now.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I don't have a good feel for this game because this line is 3.5. It's not ideal. Like 3.5 is the worst spread in the NFL because the most likely result of close games is 3. And so if you're betting the 3.5, you're just not getting good value. So you really need the -3.5 team to be a lot better than the opponent, which could be the case. I mean, the Browns are 2-5. The Bengals just had a big win over the Falcons. And you have to like the matchup for Joe Burrow here. Cleveland, like you said, doesn't get good pressure on the quarterback outside of Garrett. And it's only one guy. Cleveland's pressure rate is pretty bad. And so I feel like the Bengals should be able to move the ball. The problem, though, is that I feel like the Browns could move the ball against the Bengals as well, specifically on the ground. Cincinnati has trouble stopping the run. You saw that one drive where the Bengals allowed that Atlanta to score a touchdown like out of the I formation. Like the Falcons kept running with Algier and Caleb Huntley, and like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are so much better than those guys. So I think the Browns could keep this close, and so like the 3 might come into play. That would just worry me. But like I said, I'm probably going to be on the Bengals. I'm probably not gonna bet this game though.
Yeah, I have this down for 0 to 2 units. The only way I'd really consider betting a lot on this is if a lot of Cleveland's players are missing. Like Wyatt Teller's one of their best blockers. So if he's out, then the Bengals are going to be able to stop the run a little bit better. Though then again, Josh Tupou's out as well as DJ Reader. So, you don't want your third string nose tackle trying to go after Nick Chubb. But yeah, it's going to depend on the injury report whether or not I bet this, but I imagine I'll be on the Bengals either way.
Yeah, makes sense. We had a question about one of the Cleveland backs. Who's Kareem Hunt going to be traded to? I kind of imagine the Rams. The Rams were in play for Christian McCaffrey. So maybe they go after Kareem Hunt. Anyone else come to mind here?
Yeah, this strikes me as a move the Eagles might make. Miles Sanders has played well this year, but they kind of go back by committee. And if they had Miles Sanders and Kareem Hunt in addition to Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell, they'd have a pretty good rotation there. It'd be kind of like what they did the year they traded for Jay Ajayi and won the Super Bowl. Just continue to add to that backfield. Make sure you're stocked up on good weapons, especially since they're so run heavy.
Yeah, the Eagles make sense. They always like trading for running backs. And I heard like some rumblings. I don't know from where. This don't like quote me on this or anything. But I heard the Eagles would have interest in Robert Quinn. I think they want to strengthen their pass rush because, once they get to the Super Bowl, or like if they get to the Super Bowl, they're probably going to have to beat the Bills, Chiefs, or maybe the Bengals. And so you need your pass rush to be as strong as possible. So adding another pass rusher makes sense.
Absolutely. I would love that fit. Add another veteran to a group that already has Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox. That would be really good news for them.
Yeah, their pass rush is already like top 4. Like it would be pretty sick if they did that. All right, let's do teaser first, and then we'll do survivor. So my teaser right now is Saints +8, Texans +8. I feel like that even though the Titans won by 9 last week to really screw over that teaser, second time by the way, we had +8.5, and a team won by 9. It was so tilting. I don't see Tennessee with a banged up Tannehill winning by 9 or more over the Texans. I think it's gonna be a close game. And then, Saints +8 against the Raiders. Like the Raiders had trouble putting away the Texans last week. I think that'll be close as well. Something I'm considering is adding Tampa to this mix and having Tampa +7.5 as well. So if Tampa and New Orleans hit, I can middle this Houston wager. So I'm that's under consideration. Probably not going to do it because the Houston game starts at 4:05, and we may not know the result of that Saints game. So probably just going to go with this though.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. Obviously, I am on the Saints right now. They're teaser bait right there, and your case for Houston at +8 makes sense too, because you're talking about it either being an unhealthy Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis making his first start against Lovie Smith. So I like that. I'd consider throwing Tampa Bay in and going for the middle too, but we all think that we want to do things like that and then put pressure on ourselves on NFL Sunday, and then all of a sudden it's 5:30 and we're like, well, forgot about that. What's going on? Oh, lost everything. Great.
Yeah, I hear you. I had a DraftKings late afternoon lineup that I was like, in my head, I was like, okay, I'm going to change this to like 3:45, and I never did. I forgot. So that's that happens to me a lot. So let's go to Survivor. I don't know who's still left alive after the Buccaneers and the Patriots both lost. So you had the Buccaneers. It was a great pick, but like they just lost. So you had the Ravens, Broncos, Bengals, Packers, Bills, Rams, and then Buccaneers last week. So I'll let you think about what you're going to do. I'm on 49. I was on the 49ers, and that was a loss. And then the Rams, Eagles, Packers, Bills, which were winners, and then the Buccaneers and Patriots, they both lost. So we were both losers last week in Survivor. I'm going with Dallas. Like I said before, I don't expect Justin Fields to play nearly as well as he did Monday night against one of the top pass rushers in the NFL. So I like Dallas here. So who are you on? You have Dallas available, by the way.
I will probably be on Dallas because I don't think I have Philadelphia or Buffalo available, right? I picked both of them.
You have Philadelphia available if you want them.
I'll take Philly.
You pick Buffalo, but you have Philly. Okay, so you'll take Philly then.
Yeah, I'll take Philly. I think not that I think the Bears are going to beat the Cowboys, but I don't think that the Steelers are going to beat the Eagles. Like maybe I could save you know what? Switch me to Dallas. I'm going to save the Eagles for week 9 against the Texans. I wouldn't normally recommend saving teams, but if you have two good options, you can do it that way, especially if the next one would be your next pick. I've also officially lost finally, which is a relief because I'm not in a survivor pool and somehow made it to week 7. So, miracle of that year.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on this year with all these upsets. Like I said before, I don't know who's still alive. If you are, congratulations. I guess you had the Bengals last week. Or maybe Miami, but yeah, it's been insane. So like I said, congrats if you're still alive. So that is it for this week. Like I said before, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store, or visit the link to Stochastic, which is also in the description, and use promo code WalterFootball for 25% off. Trust me, I've been using that for like 3 or 4 years now. It is a great product. If you play any sort of DFS, I strongly recommend that you use that. So Jacob, anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I will tweet out my favorite picks. I usually do them for all the primetime games and then my 4 favorites on the Sunday slate. I don't always tweet the Sunday night game if my picks are all losers because I don't want to jinx it. I almost did that last week, but I did not. I won 1 on Sunday. So hopefully we'll get back on track. Had a week where I was 9-0 on those. So yeah, check out my Twitter, and you can go over to sportingnews.com, check out all our NFL coverage. I'll have a bunch of stuff about the games this week. It's going to be a good game week. Last week's games kind of were all terrible matchups, and then they all ended terribly for me. So I'm looking forward to week 8 for sure here.
Yeah, me too. I feel a lot better about this week than I did last week. So looking forward to week 8 as well. I'm at walterfootball.com. Tons of content on the site as usual. We have picked updates throughout the week on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday morning, and then Monday for the Monday night game. We have fantasy rankings if you're still doing fantasy. We have a mock drafts. Charlie updated his recently. My 2023 NFL mock draft will be updated probably by midnight, or at least or maybe like 1 o'clock in the morning tonight, based on how well my son sleeps. So we'll see about that. And then Charlie Campbell is posting some amazing draft coverage. So definitely check that out if you're looking forward to the 2023 NFL draft already. But yeah, otherwise, I will talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you then.